Hello, I'm Charles Randolph, and welcome to the channel. This is part 2 of my interview with David on the topic of suicide. For those whom have not seen part 1, David, who I'm very excited to introduce not only due to his lived experience, but his professional as well, holds a bachelor's degree in social work and currently working on his master's in said field. In addition, he's been working in the field since 2018. In this part, we discuss his relationship with the recovery community, interventions, the identification of another in times of crisis, help seeking, the contagion effect, and his thoughts on the limitation of lethal means. Also, yours truly, an additional valuable lesson learned from this experience, that being, while having an interview, in particular, an awesome one, to ensure that the video camera doesn't overheat. Luckily, all the audio was captured, and I believe I managed a method to retain visual attention. If not, you can skip ahead. I'll leave the exact time in the description. P.S. A new camera fan will be here by noon to ensure this does not happen again. Lastly, if you are in a time of crisis, you are not alone, and help is available. Please call or text 988, the Suicide Crisis Lifeline. I appreciate your patience and you watching. You have mentioned and used a few terms such as relapse, closed mouth trusted friend. I expect you have some connection to the recovery community.
I may or may not.
And you've also mentioned the relationships, having someone to talk to.
Mm-hmm.
Have you found that helpful?
Oh, it's absolutely necessary. I'm a big believer that, and this might be controversial in the rooms of recovery, but I think that the opposite of addiction is connection. It's a basic human need.
Absolutely.
And so for me, I am very fortunate that back into recovery, I had the gift of desperation, that I was willing to seek out people that I eventually was able to form very close, trusting relationships. So I've got a handful of guys, actually a couple women that I can be gut level honest with. And that to me is crucial. Without having that, and I guess I should say one other thing too is that that I haven't mentioned yet. We never want to do this when we're approaching somebody. Pardon, I know this is not going to look good on camera, but I don't wipe my nose. We don't when we're approaching someone, and I might be getting ahead of myself, we don't try to tell them when they say they're feeling suicidal, like, oh, you have all these reasons to live, and da-da-da. That's not where we want to go with people, like guilting them into it.
Yeah.
However, I will say that the one thing that kept me from doing it at my most darkest time, this most recent, episode that I had, was I have an adult child that I have contact with regularly. And I love this person so much that I could not do that to her, which some people say suicide is a very selfish thing, and you're harming the other people. And we could get into my thoughts and feelings about all that another time maybe, but I just was very grateful that my therapist did not pull any punches. And she said, your child will never get over it, And I think it made me really think about, my journey with my father and, because I've done like EMDR therapy around his suicide. I've done a lot of work around it. That I'm grateful that I have at least that kind of anchor, my child. When I would start to ruminate and start to go into these negative fantasies of like, oh, what would it look like and what not would I use? And,
You mentioned your son. Your feelings toward him.
I don't have a son.
Oh, I'm sorry.
My daughter.
Your daughter. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And then also your girlfriend who stopped you once, and you being concerned about her feelings as well. Mm-hmm. I mean, it seems that your care for other people and their feelings is a big deterrent to your action.
Yeah, it kind of amazes me, as self-centered as I can be. No, I do have a heart, and I do love people. I'm not currently in contact with one of my younger daughter. I know it would really hurt her, too. I just don't have the luxury of getting to see her, It would devastate my mom. So yeah, the care and the effect of others. I guess I'm lucky that I know what it's like to have a parent kill themselves. So it's easier for me to put myself in the shoes of, my children and not want to. I don't want to make my kids 6 times more likely to do it, because she's got her own struggles, and I don't want to contribute to taking her away from her child, potentially. I mean, indirectly, but so.
So we've kind of got on some of the topics of help seeking. And one, your relationships with others, a huge one, the thoughts of other people. And you mentioned that intervention. When I was looking up things, the thought of an intervention for me would scare the hell out of me.
Sure.
I would find it humiliating, just scary. I'm being in a vulnerable position. I hate the thought of people judging me.
Yeah.
That's a huge one for me, just due to my past. Do you think, I guess it's such like a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
But overall, it is helpful? Like, would it be helpful to you in your experience?
First of all, I want to normalize everything you said about how it feels to have somebody intervene when we're in such a desperate, vulnerable place. Yeah, it feels humiliating, the shame, it feels like my skin is inside out and I'm just so wrong and ugly and fucked up and being judged. And so all of those things you named, I completely relate to. And it is really hard to accept help in that situation. I had a client once who, this poor lady suffered horrible suicidal depression, and she would beg me in this state, where she's just shaking, please help me, I just want to die, and I'm like...
I can't imagine.
Yeah, it was horrible. It was this little old lady, same name as my mom, so there was some projection or countertransference stuff going on there, and just seeing the tears in her eyes and just being like, God, I wish there was something I could do for her. And she was adamant. She did not want to go to the hospital once she took too many meds, and she admitted it to me. And I thanked her, and then I promptly went in and called 911. Against her will, she got taken to the hospital. She was so pissed off. Fighting. I mean, this maybe weighs 89 pounds and just fighting these cops, kicking and screaming. So I think that image is kind of like what's going on inside of us when it comes to it, because we're giving up control, and that's not an easy thing to do. It really is an act of surrender, and it's going into the unknown. It's going into a scary thing. And some mental health places, I think they're getting better about it, are more trauma-informed than they used to be. My first time going to the hospital, it was January. I was at a hospital in a gown, and then they put me in the back of a frickin' police car on the hard seat with frickin' cuffs on and took me to the other hospital. And I'm just freezing, and the guys driving aren't even acknowledging me. I mean, that's no way to treat somebody who's having a bad day.
Absolutely.
But I've had some crisis workers come out that were just very compassionate and loving and kind and understanding, and they're probably in the program, but anyway, they've been there, Yeah, I hope that there's advances that have been made. The last time I went to a mental hospital, I'm going to put that on my OkCupid.
That's hilarious.
My pile. The last time I was at the mental hospital. Anyway, no, it was scary. I showed up there, and there was somebody kicking alcohol and puking in a bucket in the hallway, and there was these thugs. But you know what? After being there a few days, that equine therapy, like the 28 days,
Equine?
Yeah, horses.
Oh, okay.
Somebody brought horses, and it got to do this whole thing where, you got to connect with the horses with being clear and intentional, and the horses will respond to that. And it was like this spiritual experience for me. So I got goosebumps actually thinking about that horse.
That's awesome.
I miss that horse. Anyway.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. It's amazing, like the little different experiences that can be so life-changing in times of crisis.
Yeah. Yeah, I came to embrace all those people that I was afraid of when I first got there. And it was a cornucopia of chaos. I'll tell you what, there were people that were straight up hood rats. There were people who were fairly, had decent lives. There were people who were experiencing homelessness. I mean...
It's all there.
It was all there. And I was it opened up a part of my heart to where I could feel some compassion for people, because we're all in this locked facility together on this regimented schedule of meals and stuff, and watching TV together and getting to know each other's stories. And
I think there's comfort when you get in those situations, seeing everybody from all walks of life.
Yeah.
They're all there. They're all in it.
Yeah.
They're all experiencing it.
Yeah.
It does not point its finger necessarily at one social class or another.
Yeah.
It's so raw.
It's a very human experience to just get overwhelmed by life. And I think that, I think it's Carl Jung that says, God enters through the wounds, and we experience that in the recovery community, is that it's through our mutual brokenness and flaws is where we connect.
I think that is a great expression. How you just expressed before the Carl Jung quote, actually, your quote. That it is a natural human thing to go through this, to feel these feelings, and to normalize that we all go through that.
Yeah.
That everybody feels this way at one point in their life. It's to stop it from going any further and get back to life.
Yeah.
Rather than carrying that social stigma with it.
Sure.
So, about identification. How would you, with your personal experience and your education, identify someone in crisis?
Yeah, that's a good question because it shows up with different signs, and symptoms. And certainly, if we see somebody who is not engaging in activities that they used to like quite as much, they start withdrawing more. The classic is, they're giving their items away, saying, I'm not going to need this stuff, that kind of thing. Maybe there's even language around like, this is hopeless, I don't want to live anymore. Sometimes people are just very specifically out there saying that. High-risk behaviors all of a sudden that they weren't doing. Maybe they're sleeping around all of a sudden, or maybe they're getting a lot of speeding tickets or crashing cars or doing drugs, or there's those kinds of things. Sometimes, and this is something I just learned about recently, is that if somebody's chronically depressed all the time, and then all of a sudden they're just in a really good mood, that's because they may have made the decision to take their life.
Really?
Yeah, and so there's some peace that they've come to about it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That freedom.
But yeah, those are some of the kind of the classic things to look for.
When it comes with that identification, moving forward with seeking help, what have you in your personal experience felt the most valuable? Like what resources? I heard you mention one time having a helpline, making a call.
Yeah.
Again, the recovery. Which have you felt the most valuable to be?
Well, for me, because I'm in that recovery community, and I have a very close friend, that takes my calls sometimes 3 or 4 times a day, several times a week. He's a great listener. He doesn't give me any advice. He just listens.
It's important to have.
Yeah, it really is. And then besides that, if you even you probably encountered this when you were doing your research. Anytime you Google something that remotely sounds like suicide, it immediately pops up with call 988. Are you having a problem? Because I did my own research, leading into this. And so I think that the combination of having someone to talk with, someone who will listen non-judgmentally and just be there, and also, and this may be a leap for some folks, but it really own that shit. Stop I'm doing something wrong because I feel this way. Like, embrace the darkness, I guess. Not to the point of where okay, I need to kill myself kind of thing, but I'm a firm believer that severe depression and, getting stuck in that rumination and feedback loop, it's a refusal to feel the pain that's underneath that.
The rejection?
Yeah, or whatever it is that we're going through. And it really isn't even about the thought, it's like, where do I feel it in my body? Oh, my stomach's tight. Breathe into that. It just own the fact that I feel stuck. So anyway.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So one thing with me, if you can't tell, I'm a little bit of a visual person.
Sure.
How I express myself, how I speak, even. When I was looking into this, the imagery for myself was so powerful. I mean, so powerful. Reading these descriptions, the images that come to my mind they're intense. They're intense. Whether it be caused by things I've seen on TV, my own personal experiences, it's very, very powerful imagery.
Yeah.
And one thing that I found is what they call contagion or copycat. There is an event that occurs, it's sensationalized, it spreads throughout the community, we hear about it, and that increases the likelihood of someone taking action and committing suicide, either by that means or another. Have you ever experienced any of that outside influence that has increased your likelihood of committing suicide?
I mean, maybe it's given me an idea of the method. I'm kind of a, what's the word, a hopeless romantic. So like watching the movie, this will be a spoiler for people, but the most recent iteration of A Star is Born, Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, right? Close your ears if you don't want to hear the ending. But he hangs himself in the garage, right? Mm-hmm. Passion of the Christ, Judas hung himself. My dad hung himself, you know. There's just all of like this heavy like, oh, hang yourself kind of,
right?
You know, so in as much as that has probably influenced me, but only this is, you know, it's only been recent that I've actually started to consider a means or a method to do it. It's always been just kind of vaguely like, I don't want to wake up kind of thing. But now it's starting to escalate. So, you know, and as far as, you know, copycats or contagions, what that reminded me of is that I started to go into this kind of dark place in my own rumination or dark fantasy about it, where I actually kind of started to feel high off the imagining hanging myself. But then there was this thought like, oh, they're going to feel so sorry for me. They're going to feel bad for me. Won't they wish they would have done things differently kind of thing? And so I think that maybe that motivates some people. That's kind of where I was at. But then I kind of snapped out of that line of thinking, because then it was like, well, you're going to end up hurting somebody else. But so anyway, to answer your question, yeah, I think that I have been influenced by what I've heard. I don't own a firearm, have access to just do it that way, which probably works to my benefit. So.
On that note, they call it lethal means
Sure.
when looking at this topic. Mm-hmm. For example, a gun. And I don't necessarily want to get political with this. I'm more interested in your personal experience.
Yeah.
Do you feel that, again, that kind of indirect influence of policy possibly limiting your ability to either get a gun or, let's say, we made drugs illegal again
Right.
recently, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be harder to get drugs, possibly. I don't know. But it will probably be harder. Policies like that,
Yeah.
whether it be gun control, drugs, things that can induce harm upon yourself.
Right.
Restricting the ability to get them. Have you felt in your life that that has been a deterrent at all?
No, and it's a good question, because I remember being in the mental hospital and, you know, they take everything away from you supposedly that you could kill yourself with. And I'm like, these people don't know how creative I am. I'll take this fucking robe off and make a noose. You know, I don't give a shit. Right. You know, but anyway, no. I got an imagination too. You know, no, but, you know, okay, so like the first time that I experienced a hospitalization, I was experiencing suicidal ideation. I was married at the time, and I did own a couple firearms. Now, I shouldn't have, because I had a mental health diagnosis, and I just left that off the frickin' application.
Right.
And I got the damn guns. Mm-hmm. So the policy didn't do anything. And then when I started talking about wanting to end my life, my family at the time took those firearms without my knowledge and got rid of them because they were afraid I was going to use them. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was ridiculous, because I was like, I don't really want to die. I'm just really suffering and struggling. Mm-hmm. Fast forward to this most recent thing. I'm grateful I didn't have guns, because maybe it would have been easier to just do it. I mean, it's going to take a lot of work to go down in the basement, get a rope, and frickin', you know, tie a knot. And I might just not want to by the time I get it done. You know?
If it takes you more time, you might talk yourself out of it. I'm
kind of lazy about my suicidality, right? It's a good thing I can't just wish my death. It's so morbid. But anyway, I love it. So as far as the nuance of your question, though, as far as policy, no. I mean, I think if somebody really wants to die, they're going to die. The end, you know. Granted, statistics, you know, are showing that more veterans die by suicide than by combat, which is horrible.
That is crazy.
Yeah, and I would dare say that they have more access to lethal means. Men are more likely to kill themselves by violent means than women, that kind of thing. And just because, I don't know, we're crazy. But anyway, so I would say no. I don't think policy is really going to affect that, which interests me that I would think that. But yeah, I think if somebody really wants to die, they're going to do it.
Yeah. Back on anything else you would like to talk about and delve into?
Yeah. We've got like, what, another hour and a half?
Do it.
Do it. No.
Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and Part 4.
Yeah. You can have me back for weekly segments. Dr. David. Yeah. No. not a doctor. Anyway, oh God, my mind just went to some sick places. Anyway, back to the question.
Dude, there's editing. Don't worry about
Yeah.
Go to my Patreon to see what David said.
Yeah, right. Boom.
You get $79.95 for the normal stuff, but if you want the good stuff,
That's right.
let's do 15.
I love it. Marketing genius here. Folks.
Sell it.
Market it, sell it. That's right.
You need to change the pants. All right.
I'm gonna go out and get my blue shirt. We've talked about that this is a very difficult topic for people. Opinions and feelings and culturally. I mean, it goes to extremes. Nobody likes to think about their own death. They don't like to think about the death of their loved ones. I think that a lot of people get very angry, but feel anger as a result of the pain they feel about someone who's lost their life or who's taken their own life. I've had my own sort of experience with my father, of the arc of, my feelings about it. Where I've come to is more of a stance of trying to have mercy, for people.
Can you explain a little bit further?
Yeah, that if somebody is considering taking their own life, just coming from my own experience, they're in a lot of pain. Mm-hmm. They're feeling very desperate, very isolated, like they are stuck. They have no other options. And, my father, from what I understand, was full of a lot of anxiety. He had some pretty bad medical issues. I used to work in a skilled nursing facility for veterans, a lot of Vietnam veterans who needed to be taken care of 24/7, right? And they had Agent Orange and dementia and all kinds of health problems. And several of them just wanted to die and weren't allowed to, you know? And that's a whole different side conversation as far as medically assisted suicide. But what
more induced by physical pain?
Yeah.
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 I get that.
And so I think that, for me, I've seen people freak out when they hear that somebody feels suicidal. I've worked with medical staff who, as soon as a patient said they're suicidal, like, oh, get them out of here. It's like, no, let's sit down and have a conversation with them and let's validate how they feel. Let's hold space with this. And, wow, I'm sorry. Yeah, the quality of your life is kind of shitty. I get it, kind of thing. And really humanize and normalize what they're going through without the severe panic stigma reaction. Maybe I'm getting on a little bit of a soapbox. And some people are equipped to handle it and some people aren't, and I've experienced that in my own personal relationships. I've been with somebody who, when I tried to express that level of vulnerability to her, she couldn't deal with it. It scared her. And that's okay. She didn't do anything wrong. She just, for whatever reason, she wasn't able to be with that, and that was, something that I think probably ultimately pulled us apart. But like with my dad, rather than feel sorry for myself or be mad at him or, this, that, or the other, the relationship I lost out on because he killed himself and he's selfish and getting away from that kind of story and just having some compassion for him and being like, this guy was in a lot of pain. He saw no other escape other than to do this. And really, in a very final way, he was just trying to take care of his own needs and get out of pain, And I'm not trying to make a case to encourage people to kill themselves by any means, but maybe we can soften a little bit when it comes to how we approach not only others, but ourselves too,
Well, I think that reduction of judgment from other people would, allow that conversation to emerge further in society.
Yeah.
People would not be afraid to speak about it or as afraid to speak about it because of that judgment.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so much the recovery community, one thing is it's anonymous. Right? Because you only want other people. The only other people you want to know are the other people with the same problem.
Yeah.
You don't want to have to worry about that outside judgment.
Yeah.
So I consider it similar.
Yeah.
I mean, would you agree?
And I think society, our culture here in the United States is starting to come along, you know. I think like with the whole advent of the 988, number, the crisis line, and certainly veterans and surviving family members are speaking up more about it and stuff like that. And so it's becoming, there's a shift in our consciousness, as a culture that, I mean, like we were saying earlier, it's a very human experience. I kind of did a little bit of a dive like into the Bible and stuff. And there were a lot of people talking about killing themselves in the Bible. And a lot of them did kill themselves. Yeah. It's been going on for a while, So I'm glad that you approached me to have this conversation, to kind of try to bring it out to, all 3 people that might watch this. I'm sure you have more followers than that. But anyway, it just, it starts with, I think, just recognizing that, we're human beings having a human experience. And it's really, it is a struggle. We're all kind of suffering in some way. And if we can just sit with that mutual understanding of our own common suffering, that'll help, I think, bring people along on this topic especially.
I think that's a good place to end it. How do you feel about that?
Absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you so much, David. I greatly appreciate your time.
Thank you.
I think this was fantastic.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. Thank you for watching. Nailed it, right?
Yeah.
Bam, fantastic. Awesome.
Cool.
Great closing.
I think we have ease with our chemistry and communication. I enjoy talking with you.
I'm so excited for that.
Yeah, hopefully I recorded the whole thing.
Yeah. No, I'm super excited about this because I really feel like we covered it so much. It would be really impactful and help a lot of people. I really do.
I hope so.